Okay, so we're trying to solve this equation, and it says use the quadratic formula. So there's a special formula that I'm going to give you now. Let me bring it down here. So minus 4x squared minus 13x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so solving x squared and x to the first power. So remember, we've done a lot of solving with just x squared and no x to the first power. But what do you do when you have x squared and you also have x to the first power? What do you do? Well, you use the quadratic formula. Step 1, you get 0 on one side. And in this case, that's already done, right? We already have a 0 right there. So nothing needing to do. Step 2, use the quadratic formula. All right, A, B, and C are the numbers. Well, A is next to x squared. B is next to regular x. C is the last number. So in other words, this is A. It's what's next to x squared. This is B, negative 13. And this is C. So we kind of like peel off the numbers next to x squared, x, and then the last number. And we call them A, B, and C. Is that making sense? I take the number next to x squared, call that A, peel off the number next to x, call that B, and then grab the last number, call that C. We don't use the x squared or the x. Instead, we peel off the number in front of x squared and peel off the number in front of x, and then grab the last number. Okay. And now what are we going to do from here? Then we're going to use what's called, what they named up here, the quadratic formula, which is what? It is, in fact, I'm going to write it right here for you. In fact, let me do it with a big bar. And actually, big square root. There we go. It's going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Dun, dun, dun. There it is. That's what's called the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. It's what you use to solve x squared equations that have x squared and regular x. So that's what we're going to use. We're just going to plug into that thing now. We're going to plug into it A, B, and C. So let's do that. Come on down here.
Mr. Heron, is it negative b because it's negative 13x?
No, it's just part of the formula. It's just
okay.
There's a deeper reason, but we're not going to get into that. And now, but that's going to mean we're going to plug in. So now what we're going to do is plug in A, B, and C into this formula. Now remember, whenever you plug into the a formula, you put parentheses around what you're plugging in. So I'm going to plug so Alexander's question is a good one. I'm going to plug in negative 13 right there for B. And then there's also another negative that's part of the formula. So there's two negatives that are going to make that positive. Does everybody see that? So you want to keep separate and distinct whatever negatives and numbers and positives and numbers that are in the formula from those things you're plugging into the formula. I'm going to plug in negative 4 for A everywhere, negative 13 for B everywhere, and negative 3 for C everywhere. So here we go. So I'm going to try to distinguish it for you. It's going to be negative, and then I'll plug in B. B is what? Negative 13. Plus or minus. Everybody see that right there? There's the negative that was already there from the formula, and then B itself is negative 13. It says so right here, doesn't it? So that double negative on the next step will become positive 13, won't it? Does everybody see that? So there's the negative that was part of the formula, and then B itself right here is negative 13, right? And then now I'm going to plug in b right here. Again, put parentheses around whatever you plug into a form. That's not just for this formula. That's for all formulas ever. Whenever you plug numbers into formulas, use parentheses around what you're plugging in. 4, right here, 4. And now A and C. What's A? A is parenthesis negative 4. And C is parenthesis negative 3. Everybody good there? See that? Over on what's on the bottom? 2A, we use A again. What's A again? Parenthesis negative 4. How are we doing? Everybody see what's happening there? I plugged in A, B, and C everywhere into the formula. And now I have to work out all these numbers. All right, let's go. So double negative here is positive 13. Okay, so yeah, double negative there is positive 13. Plus or minus, keep that plus or minus right there. In fact, actually, let me make it red so it's clear it was part of the original quadratic formula. All right, and then inside, now this is all calculated. Negative 13 squared. That means negative 13 times negative 13, which is positive 169, right? You with me? Just do that on your calculator. I could do that right over here. This means negative 13 times negative 13, which is positive 169. Now, what about this part right here? Do that on your calculator. Now, don't forget the negative. That's a common mistake. This negative belongs to this 4. That's his baby. It's going to go with him wherever he may go. So you're going to multiply 3 negatives there, right? And 3 negatives is negative, and that'll come out 48 on your calculator. So really, honestly, I don't even put negatives into my calculator. I just look and go, okay, 3 negatives, I know the answer is negative. And then I just take 4 times 4 times 3 on my calculator and get 48. I write negative 48. That makes sense. If you have 3 negatives, you know the answer is going to be negative. If we only had 2 negatives makes a positive, doesn't it? But 3 negatives makes it back to negative again, doesn't it? Remember that 2 negatives is positive, but 3 negatives or 1 negative just comes out negative. So that's negative 48. So bring that on down, negative 48. We good? What's on the bottom? 2 times negative 4. That's easy, negative 8. How are we doing? See how I'm working out those numbers? Just carefully, using my calculator, looking closely at the pluses and the minuses, working out the numbers. 2 negatives here made positive 13. Negative 13 squared, 2 negatives, positive 169. Right here, 3 negatives, negative 48. Multiplying on your calculator. Okay, let's keep going. So next step, we're still rolling. Kind of a long deal, but it's getting nicer. So now, okay, so plus 13, plus or minus. The bottom is minus 8. Now we got to work out the inside. So what is this right here on your calculator? Well, use your old calculator. It'll tell you what's that, 121. So that becomes 121 in there when you subtract those guys. All right, we're getting close, so close. And then let's do the, yeah, no, we're going to do this right now. The square root of 121, your calculator will tell you that's 11. That's a rootable number. That's just 11. And there's no more root. Remember, when you can root a number, you root it, the root does his job, and he vanishes. So there's no more root. No more root because he did his job. You can square root 121 in your calculator. It'll tell you 11. 11 times 11 is 121. Okay, we good to there? So the root is gone.
What happens if your number isn't 121 and it's just 1?
Yeah, what's the square root of 1?
I think it would be 0.10.
No, what times? Remember, square root of 9. What's the square root of 9?
3.
And why? What if a young child said, why? Why is the square root of 9 3?
3 times 3 is 9.
Right. So what times itself is 1?
0.10 times 0.10, right?
1. 1 times 1 is 1.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that one was too easy. You're doing the hard ones, Alexander. Yeah, I know. It's so easy. It can trick us. Yeah. Yeah. Square root of 1 is just 1. And the root does vanish. Good, good. We good there. So you should have a square rootable number. Now, on the harder ones to come, we won't have a square rootable number, and we'll deal with that when we get to it. But for now, you should have a square rootable number. And so the root should vanish. Now, what do we do from here? Well, now break into 2 options. So what do I mean? Well, because plus or minus, remember, plus or minus always means 2 options, doesn't it? So that means negative 13 plus 11 over minus 8, or negative 13 minus 11 all over negative 8. See how I did the plus and the minus because it was plus or minus. So you gotta break those into the 2 options. That's what plus or minus means. It's shorthand notation for 2 separate complete answers, right? And then just finish them up. So what do I mean finish up? What is negative 11? Sorry, negative 13 plus, I'll just use your calculator. Negative 13 plus, or think about money, right? You lose $13 and you gain back 11, you lost $2. And then what's that? Do they want what do they want as a fraction answer? It says inner answer is, reduced fraction. Okay, yeah. So reduced fraction. So if you reduce that, the 2 negatives make positive, right? And then divide top and bottom by 2, and it's 1/4. So that one's 1/4. What about the other one? This one, again, use your calculator or think about money. If you lose $13 and then you lose 11, you lost a bunch of money. You lost $24. You just use your calculator, it'll tell you that. Then divide that, you get plus 3. So there's our 2 answers, 1/4, positive 1/4, and positive 3. How do we put those in? Separate by comma, positive 3, positive 1/4. Either or, you put the 1/4 first, then the 3, it doesn't matter. Those are our 2 answers. Type them in just like that. So let's recap what we do. When you have x squared in regular x, you got to get a 0. We already had that. And then you got to use this fancy formula called the quadratic formula. We're going to use this same exact formula again and again and again and again and again and again every time we have x squared in regular x. And then we identify a, b, and c, peel them off, plug them in, and then just carefully work out all the numbers until you're done with the square root. And there's no more square root. And then break it. Oh, this should say no. It should, I mean, now, no break into, now break into 2 options. Break into 2 options. In the plus and the minus means it's shorthand notation for 2 separate answers. Plus and minus, work them both out, 1/4 and positive 3. And there we go. Questions I can answer on that? Oh, wait, I did mess up on that 13. I'm sorry. Look at that. Thank you. Look, I just goofed it up. Sorry. That 13 is negative again. Thank you for the chat comment. I am a wacko here. Let me fix this. Sorry, guys. That was completely nuts. Sorry. I hate it when I mess up like that because it confuses everybody. All right. So that should have been, I don't know why that 13 became negative. I just goofed it. That's a regular 13, not negative, huh? Or probably totally confused you guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, does everybody see that? I don't know why I made that a negative 13. That's a regular 13, not a negative 13. Sorry about that. And then you do the plus or minus. And so what will that become? That'll become 24 over negative 8, which is negative 3. and that'll become 2 over -8, right? 13 minus 11 is 2. And then you got to reduce that, divide top and bottom by 2 there. It's -1/4. And that negative on the bottom, you can just put in the front. It doesn't matter. -1/4. So there's the two answers. Should be -3 and -1/4. Let me go up and fix that. -3 and -1/4 should be the two answers. Yeah, I just goofed up the 13. For some reason, I just made it negative on accident. It's not negative. We established that in the beginning. Yeah. So once you get down to here, you just break it into the plus or minus, means two separate answers. Do the plus, do the minus, and just work them out. And there we go. Good. Thank you for that, Save. Other questions I can answer on that? Thank you, Christina, for mentioning that. Other questions I can answer?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, Melissa.
I feel like I ask weird questions sometimes, so I'm sorry, but
No,
my brain just needs to know things. So I just think of like the real world application of this, and like ultimately you're trying to solve for X, right?
Correct.
But then, so you end up with two answers. So how do you know which goes with what? Is there just two answers? Because there's two, we start with two X's.
Well, right. We start with X squared. That's right. Yeah. So whenever you see that X squared, you can expect there's going to be two answers. As far as the real world applications, there's a million of them. You have to, we'll see a few of them, but especially if you go up the line, physics, chemistry. I deal with these X squared equations all the time when I teach pre-calculus and calculus, and there'll be like people throwing balls and doing things, and the two answers will be the two different places the ball will hit, for example. And there's a million other examples as well. It just means there's two different possibilities.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
But yeah, so you're right. X squared means there's going to be two answers. That's exactly right.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Uh-huh.